Blessings, everyone, and welcome to Heart to Heart. Today, we're going to be talking about keeping your word and why it's so important to keep your word. When you start a statement with I will or I'm going to, you're about to engage in a contract, a verbal contract. And if you can remember the relationship between mind, body, and spirit, then you'll understand that when you say I will or I'm going to, your spirit perks up and is listening and ready for the command. That's spirit talk. Um, the moment that you say to someone, I'm going to do something with you, their spirit awakes and is engaged and is listening for the promise that you're about to make because it understands the relationship between words, thought, and action. So, anytime you give someone your word, you're speaking to their spirit. And whether or not they acknowledge their spirit or not, the spirit is there and the spirit heard it, and the spirit is going to hold you to it. So, what happens is you give someone your word, now you're not able to fulfill it, or so you think. And now your spirit gets a little hurt because it made an agreement to another spirit. And what happens is the other spirit now starts to look at you differently and you begin to lose credibility. What's credibility? Credibility is your how believable you are, how trustworthy you are, how credible you are. Can someone really take you at your word? Every time you make a promise or any of these verbal contracts, we can call them contracts, and you don't fulfill it, you diminish your credibility. So that if you're a business and you make promises of delivery of service by a certain time or promise of a certain level of quality and you don't deliver, each time you don't deliver, you diminish your credibility. That's not what you want to do. It also diminishes your integrity. What's integrity? Integrity is, I guess you could say, is the thing that holds a structure together. When I'll use an example of a building because lots of people talk about building foundations and how you have to have a strong foundation. If you don't have a good foundation, all is lost. But it's not just the foundation. When you're building that building, it has to be strong of integrity as well because it can still fall over. It can still be compromised. So the foundation, yes, is important, but the integrity is just as important as well. So that your credibility and your integrity have to do with the structure, your soundness of your character, not just your foundation. Your foundation is where you come from, your family, the morals, the principles that you were taught or that you're learning now. Those become your foundation. But the integrity is the soundness, how well you understand it, how well you carry it out. So when you're giving your word, you want to be a person of integrity. You want it to be sound. You want them to look at you and say, well, this is a person of integrity. I know that they're going to keep their word because that's who they are about. That's the thing that holds them together. That's what keeps a building strong in the wind, in the rain, in the sun. It's the integrity, not just the foundation. The foundation keeps it upright, and the integrity keeps it together. So when you give your word and you don't keep it, those are the things that get diminished, your credibility and your integrity. A building or anything without integrity is nothing. You might as well just have a slab on the floor, just as a bunch of foundation. So it's important to keep your word. Ways that the ways that we don't keep our word is what is damaging. When you don't keep your word, say to a child, it can have almost the most damaging effect. As I said to you, when you give your word to someone, you speak to their spirit. And as adults, most of us are so used to broken promises that our spirit is kind of numb to it, but it's not healed to it, it's just numb to it. And for a child, it can determine what type of adult they'll be. It can be the difference of whether they'll be a person of integrity or not. So that if you're constantly making promises to a child and not delivering, it not only affects your credibility with them, but it affects their self-esteem, because they start to wonder, well, what was it about me that they didn't feel I was worth enough time to fulfill their obligation? Or what was it that they didn't have enough money? Because we equate money to value and worthiness, but either way it's damaging to our self-esteem. So especially when you make promises to children, you want to honor them. You want to go out of your way to honor them and show them the importance and the value of words, not the value of money. When a child breaks something, we say, oh, you broke that item. It had so much value. It was cost this much. It was worth this. It was worth this. But when you break your word to that child and the child says, oh, but you broke your promise, you don't say to them, oh, yes, and it has so much worth, I can replace it or I'll do something else. You shrug it off because you know in your heart that it did have a lot of worth and a lot of value, but you didn't fulfill it. And rather than say, well, look, we can still do it, the tendency is to just shrug it off and ignore it. And now you've left that child with wondering what was it about them that they weren't worthy enough for you to keep your word to them. So how do we correct this? What do we do? And it's not just children, it's other people. You ever notice when someone doesn't keep a promise to you, it hurts. Like it hurts. It doesn't hurt your arm or your leg. It hurts. Like it hurts your spirit. And depending on what the promise was that was broken, it can leave you feeling like splintered glass. By that I mean, you've seen shattered glass where it's shattered on the inside. If you touch the outsides of the glass, you don't feel the splinters, but when you look at it, you can definitely see the splinters. And that's what a broken promise can do. That's what a broken word can do, because it speaks to your spirit. And the thing about our spirit is that we tend not to be in the healing of the spirit business. We don't give our spirit very much regard, and so we hurt each other's spirits, and we hurt our spirits almost on a daily. Anytime that you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you hurt your spirit. And it could be something simple like someone says to you, have a nice day, and you say, I will. Now, you just said, I will. You just spoke a verbal contract. And I guarantee you, 80% of the people, 2 seconds after they say, I will, have a nice day, say, yeah, that fat chance of that'll never happen. And right there, you start to break the contract to yourself. That was something that you said to yourself, I will. So then you start immediately in that process of breaking the contract and hurting your spirit. Why can't you have a great day? What is wrong with having a great day? So again, we do this every day. You get to the office, someone says to you, oh, you mind putting some extra paper in the printer for me? I didn't have a moment to, or last time you didn't leave paper in there. And you say, okay, I'll do it. And they're like, okay, great, thank you. Now, you just made another contract and you don't fulfill it. So now your spirit starts to feel unworthy, because wow, now we made another contract. Well, we're not gonna honor it. And it does something to you inside. Now you got another contract that you made today, and it's only been what, a half an hour? 2 broken contracts. And then as the day goes on, you continue in this manner. And the only reason why we continue in this manner is because we don't pay attention to our words. We don't realize that when we say I will or I'm going to, that's a contract. Just like we don't pay attention to when we say I am, That's another affirmation. That's an affirmation. That's spiritual talk. That's something that is deeply rooted in our spirit. So how do we break this cycle? How do we change the process of hurting ourselves with broken promises? Make a list. You know I love my list. Make a list. Get a piece of paper out, fold it in half, or get your note cards out. You're going to make a list of all your open contracts. Even if it's something silly like have a nice day. If someone said to you, have a nice day, and you said, I will, put that on your list. I will have a nice day. If you told your son or your daughter, I'll play that game with you in a few minutes, put that on the list. Even though it was 5 months ago and they're probably on a different game, you don't even know. It doesn't even matter. Just put it on the list. Anything that you told someone you will do, put it on the list. Anything that you said to yourself that you will do, put it on the list. I'm going to go to the gym, put it on the list. I'm going to sign up for the gym, put it on the list. All of these open contracts, because that's what they are, open contracts, are damaging. They hurt your spirit. They keep your spirit in a state of limbo. And what happens is you're not able to fulfill anything really, because your mind is still waiting for you to fulfill the other promises. And it's like building. So you got your great foundation here, and now the integrity of it is built off of these promises. So every time you make a promise and you don't fulfill it, it's a weak integrity block. We'll call it a brick. It has no integrity. It has no substance. It was a broken promise. It was not fulfilled. So now you're building your character on all these broken promises, because that's basically what it is. It's a person of no integrity. Every time you fulfill your word, you make your integrity sound. So integrity is also important. People always talk about a foundation. Oh, you got to have a good, strong foundation. You also have to have integrity. Integrity is the thing that keeps the building sound. You can have a very tall building on a very sound foundation, but if it has no integrity, the first wind, first hurricane, first rainstorm, it's going to fall, it's going to crumble, it's going to disintegrate. So if you can think of yourself as like a building structure, not only does it need good, strong foundation, it needs integrity. Every time you give your word and you don't keep it, you lose credibility. You weaken your integrity. You lose people's confidence in you. Anytime you tell yourself you're going to do something and you don't do it, you lose integrity. You lose self-credibility. And it becomes harder and harder to succeed because your spirit is just used to seeing you not follow through. So if you're trying to become successful, or you're trying to have your child become successful and positive and confident, you need to start fulfilling your word. Fulfill your word to them. Teach them how to fulfill their words. Teach them to first think about their words. Most times when people make a promise, it's either to make the person that they're going to promise feel better or make themselves feel better. In which case, sometimes it's just a boastful promise and it's nothing that you really intend to do, but the other person is going to cling on to it. Their spirit is going to cling on to that promise and expect you to deliver. So you want to be careful that you're not just hurting someone else, but not also hurting yourself by diminishing credibility in their eyes and in your eyes. So again, use that exercise as a way to see how many open contracts you have. You can go further and divide them into, are these contracts that I wasn't able to fulfill because of money? If it's because of money, put a little M by there, a little dollar sign. Is it a contract I'm unable to fulfill because of time? Put a little T next to there, or make a little clock icon. And try to get through these contracts. Most of the time you'll see that they really aren't as time consuming as you gave the excuse for not doing it that they are. Most times if you say you're going to, let's give the example of change paper or ink in the printer at work. It'll probably take you 2 or 3 weeks, because for those 2 or 3 weeks you're like, oh, I don't want to do this for this person, or it's not my job. Why should I do it? I don't even use the print. So now you've made all these excuses when in reality It would have taken you 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes at best, to take some paper out, pop it in the machine, and close that drawer and go. Now, you look good, you feel good, you did it. It's done. And you don't have to keep it in your mind as another unfulfilled obligation, another unfulfilled contract. It doesn't weigh you down. It's not hurting your spirit because you just went ahead and did it. Promises with your children. If you promise to play ball with them, guys, or the video game ladies, whatever it is, any promises that you make to your child, fulfill it. You have to fulfill it. There's no getting around it. Fulfill it. It can damage their self-esteem if you don't. It can damage your self-esteem if you don't. You can't look at them as much as you like to, because you know in your heart you gave a promise that you didn't fulfill. So now the relationship becomes a little weird because now you got to duck and dodge them. Same in the office. Now you got to duck and dodge them because you didn't change that paper. Now you're going to act like you didn't use the printer or that you don't need the printer. And you might need to go to that printer, but because you didn't fulfill the obligation, you don't want to go over there. So it just causes a lot of weird and unnecessary behavior. If you make a contract, fulfill it. If you can't remember your contracts, keep your mouth shut. Make your list. Work on the contracts that you made. What about if you've made a contract with someone and they move, or they are no longer your friend, or maybe they're just not among the living anymore? You can still fulfill the contract. You have to resolve it within yourself. And how you fulfill the contract, if it's someone that moved away, chances are they moved away without talking to you, or you let them go without saying goodbye because you didn't fulfill that contract. Call them up and say, hey, so-and-so, I was just thinking, I know I promised that I would do blah, blah, blah with you, and I never really got around to doing it. But hey, can we make a new contract? Just start a new contract and make it be one that's feasible, one that you know you can do, because so many friendships and business partnerships and things are messed up because people don't fulfill the obligation, and they're so embarrassed that they don't know how to go back. Call them up. If it's someone that passed away, and they're physically not here, their spirit and your spirit are still here. And the reason why it still hurts and has an ache is because it's, like I said, it was spiritual. You can still fulfill it. Go to their gravesite if that's where they are, their body, or if they were cremated or whatever it is. Find a moment where you can try and reconnect with that person and talk to them. Talk to yourself and forgive yourself for not fulfilling the obligation, and do something else. Do a new contract. Do something that you can do. If you promise to go to lunch with an aunt that passed, go and still have that lunch. And bring their spirit with you. And this way you can still honor the agreement, and you can mend the broken relationship. And that's a for real thing. Lots and lots of people break friendships and romantic relationships because they didn't keep their word. And once they didn't keep their word, they couldn't keep face. So we have to stop doing that. Just keep your word. If it's something that a promise that you made in jest, go back to them and say, I was only joking, but here's what we can do. So that you not only fulfill your spirit, but you still fulfill their spirit, because the trick is to keep the connection sound. We're all connected, whether you want to believe it or not. So if you're hurting someone else's spirit, you can believe that you're hurting your own spirit too. So how we start to heal everyone's spirit is by giving the spirit what they want. Fulfill the promises. Fulfill your obligations. If you give someone your word and you find you can't keep it, let them know. The moment that you know, try to reach out to them and let them know, listen, I might not be able to keep this word, but here's what I can do. Or I didn't really think it through when I gave my promise. Can we renegotiate? There's always a way, so that you don't want to break also the tie. When you break the word, you break that connection. And that's the problem that we have in our society now. There's too many broken connections. So, again, my advice to you is to try to heal those connections, fulfill your words. If you made a promise, no matter how small it is, fulfill it. See to it. If you promised yourself you would do something, see to it. If you said you would clean up your room, clean up your room. If you said you would clean out your car, clean out your car. The 5-10 minutes is going to give you so much more than I can even explain to you. I can't explain to you what that 5 or 10 minutes will give you, opposed to the agony that you'll get from not doing it. So again, thank you for watching. Keep your word. Blessings.